More is always better.
Yeah. Well,
More-
I thought something smelled a little weird. A little right. Yeah, you remember that episode where Andy and Barney met those two women in the other town? And here, they both had girlfriends. They were in relationships.
Yep.
I mean, what kind of moral example is that? Pondering
FCC.
Psalms after dark.
Uncut. Pondering Psalms.
Well, welcome back to another exciting adventure of Pondering Psalms. Today we're taking a look at Psalm 79, and I'm here with my very good friend,
Curt
Curt
Austin.
Austin. Oh, we said that at the same time, like a choir.
Curt Austin. Yeah.
Yeah.
A choir. I was tenor. Baritone, tenor.
Yeah. My mama was bass. She wasn't. No, she wasn't. Anyway, we're looking at Psalm 79. It's a little shorter than last week's. Last week's was like 72 verses.
Yeah, it's
Today,
a lot shorter than last week's.
Yeah, we're looking at 13 verses. So how do you want to get into this one, Curt?
Well, I think, again, we have to remember this is a psalm of Asaph. And so far, since we started with Asaph's psalms, he's a downer. Asaph, he must have been living in a really tough time.
It sounds like it.
He must have been, and we kind of talked about that last week, that we are not familiar with tough times, but he must have been, and maybe this is perfect for us to be reading at a time like this, where things are really, you start to question what in the world's going on,
and that's exactly what he was doing, and whether he actually wrote it or someone from his family or tribe wrote it, it doesn't really matter. What matters is it seems like they were going through the time when the temple had been destroyed.
Yeah. I was thinking about that in relation to what we're going through here, where we don't have the physical foundation of our belief system torn out from underneath us. Right. But we certainly have a lot of cultural, social change that, and maybe even faith challenges put in front of us, that this could then resonate with us in some degree.
Yeah, I can't imagine right now. For a lot of people, churches are doing things differently. Some churches might not be, but I think most of them are. Moving online, maybe suspending worship services. But we have Zoom. We have technology to kind of help us through this time. They had nothing.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it literally felt to them, that the temple had been destroyed, and the temple was the center of not just their religion, it was the center of their economy.
Yeah.
It was the center of their social life.
Their culture.
Yeah, culture, everything. To have it all destroyed. And so he starts out with a bang, as if God didn't know. Pagan nations have conquered your land, your special possession. I think that's an important phrase, your special possession.
Yeah. Now this is the New Living, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. That's what I decided to switch to this week, so we were kind of on the same page.
Okay.
I was reading ESV earlier, and I thought, well, I think we'll probably talk about it in New Living, so that's what we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, and if you do ESV, it just gives us a chance to talk about some of the differences between the two.
Yeah, we don't have time to do that.
Actually, I think you're right.
The pagan nations conquered your land, your special possession. I think he starts right out there by saying, God, you've got it. You've got a dog in this hunt. This is yours.
Yeah, this is us.
Don't forget that. Yeah,
This is us.
yeah.
You said you loved us. You said you chose us. You said we have a special relationship with you. And something I was reading said, it's one thing when they come in and overthrow Jerusalem, like 12 years earlier, but they didn't destroy the temple.
Yeah.
This time the temple's been destroyed, and and I think it was a huge shock because the temple was God's house. And how could you destroy God's house if God was still in there? And if you do destroy God's house when God's in there, does that mean you overthrew God?
Wow. I hadn't thought about that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge deal. And he goes on, very descriptive, left bodies of your servants, the flesh of your godly ones, blood has flowed like what?
Yeah, like water in the streets. And that's and no one's left to bury the dead. I mean, it really, and we've talked about this a couple of times, is Asaph, he's very vivid in his descriptions about what, and you almost have to think, I don't think it's hyperbole. I think it's probably what he saw.
Yes.
And that's, it'd just be so traumatic, so devastating to see that, to live in the midst of that. It's reminiscent of some of the images we see from Syria. That people are still trying to live in these cities that are just war zones.
Yeah.
And you can't even cross a street without a sniper shooting at you. And what the trauma of that is that we can't even begin to imagine.
Yeah, and I think of even closer to home, New York, especially earlier this year. And I heard reports of funeral homes, and I'm not even looking at the hospitals, funeral homes being overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, they were using, and they still are down in Texas using the refrigerator trucks.
Okay. Because there's only your system is set up to bury so many people.
Yeah.
And as long as you stay in that arena, you can deal with it. But I mean, there's a certain way that we bury folks, and when there's too many.
Well, you and I having been in the church, there, like you said, there is a certain way that you want to honor that person's life.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of resources. It takes time, and you want people to be able to honor the dead, honor their lives, and just even that alone. If you've got so many who have perished, that would be really hard to live in the midst of constantly, or at least, or even in one big fell swoop like this.
Yeah.
But I think all of this leading up to is really verse 5 though, is where it really comes down to the crux of what he's trying to say is, God, why, how long is this going to be? I love that he says, "Oh Lord," in verse 5, "Oh Lord, how long will you be angry with us? Forever." Just that one word, forever.
Yeah. And we talk about, he loves us forever, and they're like, how long will you be angry with us? Verse 4 spoke to the neighboring countries, looking around at them, knowing that they serve this God and knowing that they had been overthrown. And it's like, oh, see, your God's nothing.
Yeah.
But he doesn't dwell on that. He moves right, like you said, right into verse 5, saying, how long will you be angry with us? How long will your jealousy burn? We've been worshiping other gods. You're jealous for us. And we've turned our back on you. And we've gone our own way.
Yeah. I like, I'm going to jump down to verse 8. I felt like that was kind of like you said, that we've been, worshiping other gods. And while he does say, we have been guilty, how long are you going to pour it out on us? He does deflect back, You
Yeah.
know, okay, yeah, we know our ancestors were sinful. We know that they
Yeah.
made mistakes. Um, don't
Yeah.
hold us guilty for what they did.
Yeah. I would say don't hold me guilty for what my ancestors did. I've got enough reasons to be guilty. I don't need theirs
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Let's take it down.
And he's asking for compassion. You
Mm,
know,
mm.
have compassion. Quickly meet our needs. For we're
And how
all.
in the world does he think that they're on the brink of despair? I mean, it seems to me they're deep in despair.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's just trying to kind of take a little bit of the edge off, but
Yeah. Through all of this, it's almost like, he's saying, God, I want you to know exactly how we are,
yeah.
how we feel.
This is the first. This is the first one of Asaph. This is the first passage of Asaph where he really does ask for forgiveness for the compassion. We need
The
that
compassion.
compassion,
Yeah.
where he acknowledges that there is sin that has separated them from God, and we need that.
Yeah.
That let me tell you, God, what's going on down here in case you've missed it, and what this means to us, and we screwed up.
Yeah.
For generations.
This morning I was thinking about the psalm and about what we would say or what I would say. I was actually rehearsing.
I'm sure you do. In the shower, you're in there going,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
see.
Rehearsing all the, all the stuff that we do. But, anyway, I was thinking, we started on Psalm 69. Oh, this is our 10th Psalm together.
Our 10th week.
Oh my goodness.
That's a big deal. We should have
We
balloons and a
should.
cake.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway,
Some people said it'd never last, Dave.
I know. And here we are, 9 Psalms later. But I thought, most of the Psalms we've done have been just complete and utter downers, and it's like, man, why didn't we start with some good Psalms? Why didn't we start with Psalm 1? Because I love that Psalm. And it's like, well, even at the beginning, they turned dark pretty quickly. There's a lot of laments. There's and I think there's a reason for that, because life, and I know this will be a shock to you, Curt, because you just kind of fly through.
Oh, I live in a golden world, Dave.
You do. I'm not going to say it, but you do. But life is hard. It's amazing. Life can be very hard. And I think life can be even harder when you find yourself misaligned with the creator of the universe. And I think that's where they found themselves. They were misaligned. They had gone after other gods and all this. And so he's asking for compassion. We're misaligned.
Here's a thought. I think I absolutely adore my wife.
That's good to know.
It is.
And it's very evident.
I do. I just love her. And
she watches us, right?
yeah, that's the reason, because I'm in big trouble and I need to really win some points. No, but when she travels for work, I can't believe how much I miss her when she's gone.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this related to the folks here. Is I think when we're not aligned, it's one thing if we've never been aligned.
Yeah.
But if you've been in a lockstep with where God wants to take you and suddenly you're not anymore, then it really is devastating.
Yeah.
And the same is true with our human relationships. I mean, if you've never had it, then you don't miss it. But when you do have it and suddenly it's not there, then it's isolating, it's lonely, it's hurtful, really.
How about this? Both you and I have had this experience. Maybe not everyone. You go into the eye doctor, and you're like, oh, I really don't need new glasses. I'm seeing just fine. And then they say, well, your prescription's changed, and then you get the new glasses, and like, wow, everything's so much clearer.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know what you were missing, but if you take your glasses off, it's like a huge deal. You know what you've been missing. So I kind of, sometimes we don't know what we're missing because we've been misaligned for so long. But I think you're right. if you've had that relationship and you have had the blessings and stuff that God has been pouring out, and then all of a sudden it's gone. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. It's a song, by the
There
way,
you go.
for those wondering where that came from. That's a
No one
song
wonders.
lyric.
Everybody knows that.
Oh, everybody knows. Okay.
Yeah. So 8 and 9. So I did an interesting thing. I was reading a commentary this week that suggested that we go through, and that this is really a psalm that it uses an idea of you, God, them, the other nations. Or, no, I'm sorry, no, the other nations, we, our own interests, and God.
Yeah.
And that there's this kind of, the other nations have caused this.
Yeah.
We are suffering. God, where are you? Kind of a thing.
Right.
Or, so it's them, us, we. And so it suggested going through and counting, looking at this. And so I went through and I was looking at the number of times that it talks about the other nations, or the people around us, the pagan nations, the nations they, and it was 13 different references to what they have done. They are celebrating. They have destroyed us. The number of times that it talks about we, us, our, is 12. But the biggest focus on those are in verses 8 and 9. Do not hold us guilty. Let your compassion quickly meet our needs, for we are on the brink of despair. Help us, O God, our salvation. And so it's really there. But 22 times it talks about you or your. And it's I love that the psalmist, Asaph, is continuing to point back to where their strength lies, where they find their encouragement, where they find their hope. It's not us. It's not our own power, because really all the time that they're talking about us is either we screwed up or we are suffering. Not even that we've sought our own strength. It's the other nations who have brought this power and destruction. But you are the one who can bring hope. You are the one who, this is your holy city.
Yeah.
It's not ours, although we live in it.
It's the glory of your name.
Your name, God.
Yeah.
And
How
I thought,
you treat us, other nations see, and it's reflected back to you.
even that they have spilled the blood, not, and I thought it was interesting, not of us, of the people who live in Jerusalem, but they've spilled the blood of your servants.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, all of this suffering is happening to the people of God, your sheep of your pasture.
Yeah.
I thought that really helped me to appreciate this psalm a lot more. And, in verse 13, and I know I'm jumping around. You hate that. You like to kind of do the flow. But in verse 13, there's nothing mentioned about the other nations, or it's just, then we, your people, the sheep of your pasture, will thank you forever and ever, praising your greatness.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
I love that.
Yeah, it ends with praise, which is beautiful. But one of the things I noticed overall in this psalm, and this is the same for our life, we have a choice. And that choice is to feel, during those times of despair, that we have been abandoned by God. And you kind of see that in this psalm. How in the world could they come and destroy your temple? You've abandoned us.
Yeah.
We're here on our, do you see what they've done? There's bodies in the street. There's no one to bury them. So that's one option. But the psalmist doesn't stay there. The psalmist moves really to the more, I think, healthy thing, which is to abandon yourself to God. And we especially see that in those last few verses.
Yeah.
I'm abandoning myself to you. I am still your sheep. We are still your people. We still are in relationship to you. We are not abandoned by you. We are still yours, even in this horrible, despairing situation.
Praising your greatness, not just this minute, from generation to generation. This is going to be part of our legacy of celebrating who you are, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things that we can take away from this is that this is really, and I know we've been doing this now for almost 10 weeks. This is a really dark time because this started in January. We're now into to August. Today's August 1st is when we're recording this. You guys will listen to this later. But we're into this pandemic 8 months. And that's probably just a blink of the eye compared to what Asaph and the people of Israel experienced over the long term. So for us to be able to celebrate God's greatness in the midst of this, it's important for us to remind each other of that. And certainly the Psalm does that. It reminds us that these were dark days, and yet we can celebrate from generation to generation God's greatness.
Yeah, I like that word. I think that's a good last word for us, to remind each other. Remind each other that, and we don't have to sugarcoat it. Yeah, it's not a fun time. It's not a good time. For some people, it's better than others. And we need to remember that.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that things won't get bad for those who things are good right now, and things might get worse for those who things are bad. But still, in the end, we can still abandon ourselves to God, because really, what other choice do we have?
And we've said this multiple times, the iron sharpening iron, making sure we're connected to people whose faith is strong. We were on a call this week with people whose faith is strong. There was good prayer, there was good support, and it took us to a different level of encouragement. That's the word, encouragement. By somebody who really just had a trust in God. Now, next week we may be the encourager.
Right.
This week we were encouraged, and I think that's critical to understanding who God is and how we make it through these times.
And I want to encourage those who are watching this to be encouraged, even in those dark times. And if you really are in dark time, find someone you can talk to. Someone, maybe a friend who has a faith, maybe someone at your church, or maybe your pastor, or someone else, a staff person. Just grab onto them and just say, hey, you know what? Psalm 79 is where I am.
And Psalm 79 takes 10 minutes to read at most, and sometimes
if you read very slowly,
3 minutes to read, and I think sometimes even a conversation that's 10 minutes long is maybe all it takes sometimes to encourage us to move on to the next day. It does not take long. It doesn't take a 2-hour conversation just to say, oh my gosh, that's such a good word, thank you.
Well, Curt, I have not heard the duck on the wall. But
no,
I
trusted that our internal ducks would go off, and so.
Well, I don't know that
I do. I appreciate this psalm very much. Next week we're doing Psalm 80, also a psalm of Asaph. I haven't read ahead, so I don't know. Maybe he turns the corner, and he talks about ponies and rainbows moving forward. So
My Little Pony.
My Little Pony. That's right. Yeah. So. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much. This has been a great... And Dave, thank you for talking about this with me. Yes. Have a great week, and we will see you back here next time.
We see you. Yeah,
That's right.
Time.
That's right.
Next time.
Next time. All right. Goodbye. It didn't seem like it, though.
26, 25.
But it went... I thought it was fast.
Well...
It was beautiful.
You didn't have to listen. You weren't the one listening.
DAV?
Wait, how did that happen? Has it been like that the whole time? I'm more casual, just usually. And this is kind of a casual show. But I thought, I don't have to dress like I just, came out of the gym or something.
Well, honestly, last week the shirt I was wearing was what I'd slept in.